Ambassador.
Hello.
Hi, good to hear from you. Ambassador, so I'd like to welcome you and all the participants to Ankara Policy Center's Zoom meeting. But before we start, Ambassador Fatih Ceylan is going to make some remarks, and then we will continue with our conversation.
Super, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Ambassador Ceylan.
Thank you very much indeed, Tülin Hanım. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Ankara Policy Center, I welcome you all to the 11th event launched by our center under the title of Diplomatic Wisdom Series. Today's topic is war in Ukraine. We are hosting today an important colleague, His Excellency Ambassador Vasyl Bodnar, representing Ukraine in Turkey. We are all honored to have Ambassador Bodnar as our guest speaker today at our webinar. Dear Vasyl, if I may, welcome to our midst. During such a critical and harrowing period of time your country is facing owing to the ongoing Russian aggression against your country. I'm privileged to know Ambassador Bodnar on previous occasions, a colleague with a strong and rich career background. I should like to commend him for his tireless efforts to bring clarity to the Turkish public on the recent state of affairs unfolding in Ukraine. It's evident that Ukraine, an independent and sovereign country, a close neighbor to Turkey, and Turkey's strategic partner, is passing through dire straits due to the atrocities being committed by Russia within Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. Both the Ukrainian leadership and people are putting up a heroic resistance to Russian armed aggression in flagrant violation of international law, international humanitarian law, and the Geneva Convention of 1949. Our hearts and minds are with those living under terrible conditions in the war-ravaged territories of Ukraine. We share the grievances of particularly human losses caused by the Russian aggression against your country. We believe that peace will prevail in Ukraine and Russia will have to pay a heavy price for the havoc it has been wreaking in your country. Without further ado, let me once again express our gratitude to you, Ambassador Bodnar, for being with us this evening. Now I leave the microphone and the screen to Tülin Daloğlu from the media community, who is also one of our members, Ankara Policy Center. Thank you.
My apologies, I had to unmute myself before speaking up. Ambassador Ceylan, thank you so much for these remarks. And Ambassador Bodnar, before I pass the word to you, I also like to welcome once again the participants to this Zoom meeting. I see many members of the Ankara Policy Center here, academics and journalists. So I gather that this group of people are well informed about what is taking place in Ukraine. And so we like to hear your take, but maybe a few questions as to what we may like to hear from you in the next 10-15 minutes before we start with the Q&A. Like, when do you think Russia is going to stop this escalation? How do you see the mentality of the Russian leadership vis-a-vis Ukraine? How could the international community stop Putin? And, you know, questions like this. So we like to gather in terms of what comes next, what do you expect from the talks between the Russian and the Ukrainian side, and anything that you can share with us. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Dear Tülin, thank you very much. Your Excellencies, dear friends, journalists, academics, I'm very happy to be tonight with you. It's a great pleasure for me because I'm addressing the first time to such an honorable audience. Actually, there is not a simple answer to the questions you put, because first of all, the war was launched unreasonably. So there was no single reason for starting these attacks except subordination of the country. So Russians have a clear intent, clear aim to keep the control over the country and to take us as the part of them. So it goes through their ideological beliefs that Ukrainian and Russian people are the same. And it is one of the Putin's preconditions, or maybe the beliefs that it is so when he would turn back Ukrainians back to the auspice of Russians. So it's mental things or psychological. The other thing is that Russia have been afraid of Ukraine's progress in changing the country. And in our case, it was democracy. In the case of Russia, it is still strong autocracy and self-isolation. So they were afraid of all this progress. And the last point was that we were not subordinated to their demands with regard to the settlements of the conflict in Donbass according to their views. There are many other things which could be explained the reasons of the war, but actually it comes from the difference between two nations and the wish of Russians to renew their empire. So as up to today, there is no a single sign that Russia start to de-escalate situation or think in a different manner than they started the war. I mean Putin, because he still tried to attack, he still tried to kill and demolish our cities, kill our children and women, and the atrocities are still going on. They just reconcentrate their efforts because, first of all, they miscalculate with the use of force against us. So they failed in the battlefield on a number of their actions. Now they are reconcentrating their efforts. The same they failed with the diplomatic dimension, because at the beginning of our talks, which actually they initiated, was that we are giving you the paper and you should agree and surrender. So it was like almost the same like it was with the German after the World War I, when the Versailles Treaty was signed. So demilitarization means no armed forces. Denazification doesn't understand what does it mean. We should give up our language, literature, history, everything, and just subordinate to Russia. So now we have a different story, because first of all, the talks which took place with the assistance of the Turkish side, which we highly praise, and we're really happy that there is a strong position in mediation, and it's really appreciated to come to an end these atrocities and to make at least ceasefire or stop this bloodshed and sign some kind of at least preliminary agreement. Their voices are different. So now we propose them to look at this war from the other perspective. It's about like guarantees for our security in exchange of the neutrality status, which was actually the key element of the discussion during the talks between two delegations. So Russians are now trying to convince the international community that they have been trying to not to conquer Ukraine and not to change the government of President Zelensky, but try to just extend the limits of so-called unrecognized republics to the territory of regions which they exist in the Ukrainian administrative division. It is not true. It's actually understandable that they couldn't do it properly in the battlefield, so they are now trying to switch their targets. But in diplomatic negotiation, they are also switching to the different language. So we are pushing back we push them back from the ultimatums to more or less diplomatic discussions and start to discuss the practical things, not their propaganda tools, or propaganda ideas which have been, let's say, posted on the Russian society, and they would like to use it the same in the negotiation table. So now what we are speaking about, it's about that Ukraine will not pretend to be the NATO member, but in exchange to receive the guarantees from all 5 National Security Council members and other countries like Turkey, Germany, and others for their defense and territorial integrity. There are a number of practical issues of territorial integrity of Ukraine which have not been agreed or even discussed in details. But there were some proposals with regard to the territory of Crimea and with about territory of occupied Donbass. We are ready to discuss it separately. And our key demand is to withdraw, to make a ceasefire and to withdraw forces of Russian Federation from Ukrainian territory, as it was on the 23rd of February. They still didn't agree on that, but that's our basic demands. And then we are ready to discuss other points of this proposed agreement. So we make a counter proposal to their previous drafts, and they receive it and start to talk about that. And when you heard the voices about constructiveness of the talks in Istanbul, it's uncomparable to those happening in Belarus and in Antalya before. I've been in Antalya as well. I haven't been in Belarus, but it was different stories. So thanks to efforts which were done by the Turkish side, by President Erdogan and by Minister Çavuşoğlu, it works in different manner. And I believe that they are moving forward with some of the issues. Still, the question is, will Putin accept this proposal from our side and try to work with that, or order his people to work with that? The other story is about the possible meeting of our ministers, which could be the officials who most probably will sign or will initialize the possible agreement. Still, it is more theoretical things, because the practical dimension of the story is in the battlefield. As strong we will be in the armed forces and defense forces, and as strong we could push them back, the easy position will be in the negotiation table. It's like understandable dimension, but de facto it works only like that, because in the first days of war they wouldn't like even to think about any guarantees or anything, but now it is switched to different stories. There is also one internal dimension of all these discussions, that Ukrainian society is very keen on NATO, EU, and sovereignty and territorial integrity. And when Russians start to manipulate different issues in their public discourse, they try to hurt the unity of society and authorities, which are now very huge and strong, and try to disperse this unity by different methods of hybrid influences, like spreading false information, disinformation, or half-truth information. And that is one of the things which we are cautious of. And the main message of Ukraine for now, it's like that we need, first of all, ceasefire and withdrawal of Russian forces, then we could talk about other settlement issues. But for sure, it couldn't be neither demilitarization, because it means the death of Ukraine, nor denazification, because it means nothing. We have no Nazis at all, and all Russian propaganda have been working to create from us Nazis. Now they are creating the image of Nazis from Russian people who are living in Ukraine and who fight against Russia. Because majority of cities who suffered now this aggression, they are populated with the people who speak mostly Russian, and majority of them, or let's say half of them, might be Russian in origin, or one-third of them. It depends on the cities. But these Russians, by origin or by speaking Russian language, they are defending their motherland against Russian invasion from Russia. It looks or sounds very, maybe not standardly, but this is the reality. And when Russia proposes or insists on imposing Russian language as the second one, it's a nonsense, because now everybody is hating all these Russian narratives. That is because of the Russian propaganda, which traditionally was used in Ukraine for spreading out the false news and fake narratives, which traditionally was the tool of Russia in influencing on our population and on the population of other countries from the post-Soviet Union. So maybe I will stop on that, not to take much of your time, and maybe then I will have more questions, and I will be ready to answer all the possible questions you have.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. I'll open the floor to the questions, but before we get to the questions, I have a question for you, Ambassador. You said we'll put and take our proposal and work with that. It seems that, you know, I mean, everything seems to be in progress, and we are hoping that the ceasefire comes sooner than later. What do you think that the international community can do for helping the Ukrainian side to secure a good ceasefire?
It's very simple. Support by military means and impose sanctions. That's all our community, international community could do, because otherwise, if there is an attempt to continue work with Russians, it's like supplying war. If not supplying us with weapons, so we will be weak enough to push them back. That's the simple as that. So what we are insisting now are sanctions and weapons.
Okay. Hasan Ghosh.
Thank you, Tülin. Thank you, Your Excellency, first of all, for sparing your time in the middle of this hectic period. My question is regarding the talks with the Russians. What is the stage of these negotiations? I know it's confidential, but have you reached a stage close to a final settlement, or to be more precise, are you negotiating a short statement first and then a peace agreement will follow it later? Do we have a joint text on the table to negotiate on?
Look, first of all, there is no joint position, and what we are doing now is just having some kind of consultations and then making statements separately. So there is no even an attempt to make a joint statement because, first of all, we couldn't find a common ground yet. Secondly, it will be bad received both in Ukraine and in Russia. Yes, we have some texts which we are exchanging with, and the text which was basically Russian, it was fully unacceptable for us. So we prepared our own. It is considered less confrontational than Russian, and Russians take it as the ground for the work. So as I understand from the message from Kremlin, it is received more or less well, and they start to work with them. But I didn't know the final decision of Putin, if it's okay with the proposals from our side, like about these guarantees and the terms for different other solutions, or he will continue attacks, because still the battlefield is the main issue. If they will succeed in something, they will harsh their terms. If they'll fail in something, they will try to be more flexible. That's as simple as that. And because of that, these talks they're conducted mostly not by the diplomats, despite we have diplomats, but some kind of politicians or trusted persons from the two presidents, just looking for the more political solutions than diplomatic one. And still it is in process, but at least now there is no confusions between delegations, and there is no an attempt, I would say, easily to kill each other than just to talk and find solutions. That's might be a step-by-step problem, because we are still in war and still people are suffering, and then still it's very emotional. So it's not an easy task to speak freely and easily and to look at them as like ordinary partners when they are killing us. So it's still too high emotions about that. It's not the post-war settlement, it's in-war settlement.
So is my understanding correct? There is no joint text, even bracketed form. So everybody has its own text for the time being.
It's not like that. So their text was rejected, so we prepared our own, and we are now waiting for their responses to our text. So it is not a joint text; it's the separate text. But they agreed to start to working with that. So it's like zero stage of the negotiations on the text.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ambassador Yene.
Thank you, Tülin. Thank you, Ambassador, for your presentation. I'd like to focus on the guarantee issue. 2 points there. First of all, the idea is to have the P5 and some other countries guarantee that. Now, the P5 includes Russia. So how would you accept Russia to be a guarantee, as you know that they don't actually adhere to any of their commitments? And secondly, a guarantee is not an easy, decision to take, especially for Turkey. We've had guarantee issues in the past. And if you remember, in 1939, when the UK guaranteed the borders of Poland, they had to get into war, and that's how the Second World War happened. Turkey was a guarantor of Cyprus, and we had to take action. So the issue is, first of all, even if you don't have Russia as a guarantee in the future, and if the Russians again try to invade, that means Turkey and some other countries will have to act militarily, which I wonder if anybody or any country is ready to do so. So my question is, do you think that the guarantee issue is something that's feasible? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. It's really the core of the problem, because politically, all the 5 countries, P5 countries, and some others who have been asked for, they responded positively. But still, none of them understand correctly what does it mean in our meaning. So we understand these guarantees as the substitution of Article 5 of NATO Treaty. It means that in case of war against us, other countries who are guarantors are supporting us with everything possible, starting from the political consultations in the 3 days, ending to supply us with everything possible, including military forces. It's our vision. Russia is included to be involved in the process as the P5 country, which is essential because otherwise they will block any efforts to sign this agreement. So we could sign guarantee agreements without Russia, but then the war will not be over. So it's like the case when they will be in game, take responsibility as they, because we don't trust. If we could trust them, we could sign agreement on bilateral base, but we don't trust them. So that's why we invite other partners to participate in this format. And this agreement will not be bilateral. It's not be a peace treaty. It's a treaty on guarantees, which will be signed, a legally binding document by the guarantors as well. Ukraine as the, let's say, the country which is receiving these guarantees, and the other countries which are participating in that. So still, we need to discuss with other countries of this scale of guarantees and scale of engagement, because we does not need any paper guarantees, which we have during our giving up of nuclear weapons. Budapest Memorandum is just a paper, which doesn't work even for Americans, because they're still not fulfilling even the obligations on Budapest Memorandum. I'm not saying about Russia, who just break it down and are pushing for their own agenda. So that is the issue which will be discussed by experts and politicians, and most probably in the nearest days or maybe next week, there will be an invitation from our side to representatives of these countries to discuss it in different formats, maybe starting from ATC ending to the physical meeting, what we mean under the guarantees and what the agreement could be reached on the scale of these guarantees. Because otherwise, there is no sense of these guarantees if countries will not grant us, will not support us in the bad times. Because today, we are formally a neutral country, which have no connections with no alliance, neither NATO, nor the union which is led by Russia, nor anyone else. So we just have association agreement with EU, and that's all we have now in connection with the other countries. We have different forms of cooperation, but it has nothing to do with the security or military agreements. So it's a different story. And this war we are fighting by ourselves with support of international community, actually. What we are receiving now, it's actually good, and we are grateful for that, but it's not enough. It's not enough to win the war. And that is the deadlock, because Russians do not have enough force to push us to surrender, we have not enough force now to push them back out of our country. And it prolongs the war, and this prolongation affects the whole region, including Turkey, because of the economic dimension of the story, security, and others. But active position of Turkey here is mostly welcomed, and we really believe that it could bring to some results, and active diplomacy or proactive diplomacy is much more better than just sitting and waiting.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador, we are going, Ambassador Ceylan, Ayşe Sezgin also asked to ask a question. Ayşe Hanım. My apologies. Ayşe Sezgin sent me a note that she also likes to ask a question to the ambassador. Ayşe Hanım, are you online? No. Fatih Bey, can we continue with you?
I'm online. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, Ayşe Hanım.
I'm very sorry due to the technical difficulties. I would like to ask the ambassador the relationship with the European Union. The relation, actually after 1993 Copenhagen summit, when EU confirmed that it will enlarge to Eastern and Central European countries, it devised I would say a program, what is called the neighborhood program. And then it was also developed into the Eastern Partnership. In the meantime, Ukraine signed an association and cooperation agreement, which entered into force in 1998. And now you have an association agreement with the EU, which entered into force in 2017. But as far as I know, Mr. Ambassador, no document which was signed or agreed upon with the EU does not contain any commitment from the EU side as regards full membership of Ukraine to the European Union. If we all know the reasons why, due to the strategic balance that the EU was trying to retain with Russia and the economic relationships, this all led to keep Ukraine close, but not within. This is what I see, at least. Do you think that if and Ukraine was very much willing to speed up the process and become a full member. And we all remember that in 2000, I think, year 2000, when the French and the German foreign ministers declared that Ukraine, Moldova, and Belarus will never become members, it was a big, I would say, disappointment for us too, and I suppose for you much in a much larger sense. Do you think if EU had been more visionary and forthcoming with Ukraine's membership bid, and if Ukraine had been integrated into the EU, this situation would have occurred? Because this military aggression or operation by Russia would then have been considered as an aggression to the EU territory. And as regards guarantees, Selim Bey was just mentioning the guarantee issue. We all remember the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, where, if I'm not mistaken, Russia, US, and UK, which China and France, I think, joined later, which finally, I read somewhere that Mr. Putin said that it's not me who signed the Budapest Memorandum, so I don't have to abide by it. These are all issues which have I think, for the future, have, I would say, would have influence in the future negotiations or in the discussions which will be held to end this horrendous war. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayşe Hanım. So I will start from the EU dimension. So first of all, with the EU, we have been integrating for a long period of time, and both tracks, bilateral, which lead to the visa-free regime and the DFTCA, Deep Freight Free Economic Area, and this Eastern Partnership program, they were facilitating us with the conducting reforms and bringing Ukraine closer to the internal market and to all the necessary things related to the integration. Actually, up until the beginning of war, there was no a single side of the readiness of the European Union to accept Ukraine. That was true, and that was the policy of EU, which gradually tried to postpone our integration. But when the war started, the political situation changed. So if you remember 2014, when we paid a high price for our European ambitions, so the EU signed association agreement very, very quickly, in a couple of months after the Russian invasion started in 2014. Now there was a clear declarations of majority of European states about the readiness to work on speed accession of Ukraine to the EU. It doesn't mean that it will be overnight, and it doesn't mean that the war will affect the EU by itself, but it means that the EU could be engaged in the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war. That's why we are engaging European partners to be the part of this agreement and to be the guarantors, which doesn't mean that Russia will be the player in this game alone. Even if they will be with China or with some other countries, there are also some countries which are favorably looking at Russia among possible guarantors. They will not have majority, and they will not have a veto right for any adapting decisions regarding this security situation in Ukraine. That is why this idea is, it's still the project, it's still being elaborated, and what the final version will be, it's still the open issue. But for us, it's clearly understandable that there is no way another than integration to the EU, because otherwise Russians will try or will continue to try to turn back control over Ukraine, to attack us or physically or indirectly. So it will be continued. They still have in their heads that without Ukraine, Russia could never be empire. And if you look at the history, what was Moscow before they joined Ukraine? It was the small kingdom which was subordinated and paid tribute to Crimea Khanate. That was the truth. But after using Ukrainian potential and resources, they became an empire. So they started to raise up in 18th century, and that's true. So that might be more historical dimension of the story, but it influenced on the mind of Putin, and he's trying to repeat it, but it turned back to the different dimensions. The other story is about what the Europeans are doing. They traditionally tried to balance. Now, majority of them rejected Russian aggression against Ukraine and Russian war against Ukraine. And I have seen no voice in practical terms who will say that they will continue business as usual with Russia. Yes, they are not obeying sanctions policy 100%. That's true. But majority of their companies are withdrawing from Russian markets, and what's going on in cooperation with between EU and Russia, it's had nothing to do with the situation which was before the war. We will see how it will be developing, because we know that the countries have their own interests. They will most probably try to relaunch or reestablish something. But what we see now, it's in favor of Ukraine, and support for practical support from the European Union is much more higher than it was even at the time of 2014. So now it's a different story, and we will see how the war will end it and when it will end. That also will have an impact on the process of integration to the EU, and we will see how countries will look at that. That is also the story for let's say, it could be a speculations how we could do and how fast it could be, but for sure it will not be in the standard procedure.
Ambassador, I see that you're using very delicate terminology in terms of how soon or how far this war is going to take place. So I just, wanted to extend my sympathy to you before I extend the question to Fatih Ceylan. Fatih Bey, buyurun.
Thank you once again, ambassadors, for joining us this evening on a very critical topic of global interest. Now, my question is more of a military nature. What I have been witnessing in recent days is that the tempo of Russian troops movement in the south is much higher in comparison to what's going on in the west and in the north, in Kiev and other cities. That did not stop them from striking with missiles and artillery shells, be it Kiev or other cities, but the movement and the tempo of war in the south is much higher. Now, my question stems from that observation, if that's correct, of course, because they are regrouping in the north and increasing fighting in the south. Although there had been some skirmishes around Odessa, there had not been a kind of direct assault by the Russian forces against Odessa. So my question is, how does the Ukrainian leadership assess potential Russian intentions against Odessa? I mean, would they wage a fighting trying to close the gap between Crimea and Transnistria, including Odessa in their campaign, or are they holding Odessa as a bargaining chip on negotiations that are still ongoing with regard to ceasefire and a potential peace? So that's my question. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, the ambassador. Thank you for all your efforts to support Ukraine and for all our previous work. I highly appreciated all your deeds. So maybe the answer is simpler. They just failed with their plans, because what they plan is for an land operation to capture big cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv in the north, and Kherson, Mykolaiv, Odessa, and Mariupol in the south. They start very quickly to move in south, and the answer why they managed to capture Kherson and encircled Mariupol, very simple, because it's a plain where there is no natural positions to defend. So Kherson was also not defended in the city, but also on the outskirts. And our forces have no capabilities to capture it physically. But when they came to Mykolaiv, where there are a number of bridges and other things, they couldn't just penetrate, and they tried to move to the up to the north. And finally, they were stopped near Voznesensk, where they started to be pulling back, or we are pushing them back. It's in the south. They also go to Energodar and kept this Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and go to east to encircle Mariupol. From north, they also try to kept Kyiv and other cities, but they failed because they miscalculated with numbers. So I just speak with the deputy chief of our general staff, who was in the delegation, and he said that even in the academy, they are studying the basic principles of encirclement, advancement, etc. So to capture Kyiv, they need all the forces. They launch the attack only to Kyiv, because a 1 million city, 5 million inhabitant city, to capture, they need more than 250,000 troops in ordinary way. But they have some, I don't know, 60,000 troops or something like that. So it was not pretty enough. Yes, they captured a number of towns around. They destroyed all the suburbs or the small cities, but they couldn't penetrate to the city at all. Despite they have the plan at the first day to launch this landing operation inside Kiev, and kept President Zelensky and his family as the hostages, or at least killed them. With Odessa, it's also simple, because the original plan was to keep these cities like Kherson and Mykolaiv and go by land to Odessa, to outskirts, then to launch the offensive from Transnistria, and then to start these seaborne operations, just to encircle. So we didn't let them go to Odessa at all. They didn't initiate anything from Transnistria, and or majority of their troops, which were prepared for sea launch operation, they are stuck in around Mariupol, because they have been sending these new troops to deal with Mariupol, but they couldn't have enough capabilities to launch the seaborne operation. They tried to penetrate with a couple of ships. Some of them were destroyed, some of them were hit, and they turned back. They didn't continue their sea attacks, despite they are launching missiles, Caliber and others from the sea, and that's as simple as that. So with Kyiv, they are also being pushed back. They start to withdraw to Belarus to regroup, and then maybe they will be sent to Kharkiv or to eastern part. So no in the south. In the south, they are also pushed back, because in Kherson region, our forces are now advancing, not so quickly, but pushing them back, and the destruction of their forces in the south around Kherson, it's maybe we couldn't even count them, because they lost a number of helicopters and military equipment just being shelled by artillery. There is one bridge through which they are penetrating to via Dnieper River, and they are hitting this one of the airfield. We call it Chornobayevka. It's well-known city because they were hit 10 times in a row, and every time they bring new forces, they were once again hit. So it's like, I don't know, military unwiseness, or I don't know why they have been doing it. With Kyiv, it was also very strange, because they have been trying not to attack as military units, but they have been having high-speed movement and trying to penetrate to the city of Kyiv on the high speed of their movement with all these armored columns, etc. And actually, some of them were out of fuel, some of them out of ammo. Some of them just get lost in. Now joking, Russia is the biggest with the armor, because the number of lost armor in Ukraine is higher than they lost in all other conflicts, all in all, as if to be calculated. So that's why it's purely miscalculations about the directions, but they are strengthening their efforts in the east. Donbas region is now the highest burning point, and we will still face the new phase of their attempts to advance in east, in Luhansk and Donetsk region, and the main battles will take place there. So it will be the most endangered places around Donetsk and in Lugansk Oblast, and including Mariupol, which is now encircled and still withstand with a strong bravery.
And that's the question is from Barchin Yinanch, but Barchin, I'm going to ask for a minute, because we have a written question. Ambassador, how do you see the position of China towards the current conflict? What does, in your opinion, Lavrov seek in his recent visit to China?
Look, I'm not dealing with China. Maybe it will be more speculation than the exact analysis. First of all, we see that China is not in direct support of Russia, and that's good. Indirectly, they are trying not to let Russia die out of sanctions, and most probably they agreed on something, on some supplies of something. Still, there are many speculations. Either it's military equipment, or it's just humanitarian assistance, or financial support. We still didn't know exactly. But what I had previously from some experts, that even the war in Syria was paid by Chinese money. I don't know if it's true or not, but it means that Russia didn't have even the possibility to pay its own debts in conducting this bombardment of peaceful cities. and most probably they are looking for some kind of support in practical terms for Russia not to fall down immediately. The other story is that China also take a lesson out of the war of Russia against Ukraine, that old style tactics and all Soviet or post-Soviet equipment that China also possess in numbers, it is not so sufficient in comparison with the modern warfare and with equipment which we have obtained, even anti-tank. Despite we are lacking some heavy equipment like tanks and artillery, but still these anti-tanks and anti-aircraft systems, which like manpads, they are working pretty good to defense, and they might affect strongly even superior forces if you have a strong will and readiness to defend yourself. Plus was taken into account that the forces which are fighting now, majority of them have the combat readiness before, because they have been on the front line from 2014, and whose Russia sent, even including those pilots who have been in Syria, majority of them were not engaged in all the combat activities, and the readiness of them were not so high in comparison with ours. I might maybe over-exaggerating, but still it works in such a way. Plus, in our case, majority of defense forces, or the majority of territorial defense forces, they are composed of ordinary motivated people who are defending just their houses. It's not about even the, let's say, mobilized people, because it was not enough time to mobilize them in the armed forces. That is also one of the motivations that should be taken into account. If we could look at the rumors which were spread out before the Russian war started against Ukraine, it was the rumors that they agreed on attack of Russia against Ukraine, and the Chinese would like to do something with Taiwan. There was also rumors maybe expressed with analysis of different observers. So that is why they maybe take a lesson on that.
Okay, Barton, please go ahead.
Tülin, thank you very much. Ambassador, thank you. And let me first of all tell you the appreciation of some of my colleagues about the communication strategy your embassy has been following. It doesn't mean that they take every information you give to them without any reserve, but some of my colleagues have been appreciative of the patience shown by your staff, especially when they ask their questions. So I just wanted to convey this to you. Ambassador, in view of the fact that NATO and the United States have time and again said that they will not fight a war for Ukraine against Russia, I do not understand what makes your country and your negotiation team optimistic about the fact that you might convince some of these NATO members to provide security guarantees, which would be like Article 5. The logic a little bit escapes me. Another question I would like to ask is, may I ask you to elaborate a little bit more the role of Turkey? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have said something like the talks in Istanbul were more meaningful compared to even to Antalya, thanks to Turkey's efforts, which I understand that this is not just about providing the setting in Dolmabahce, but maybe coming up with some creative solutions, with some formulas. So I'm a little bit curious whether from time to time the Turkish side, the Turkish diplomacy is also coming up with certain creative ideas or proposals. And Tülin, with your permission, as you know, most, if not all, the ambassadors present know me, so I'm sure they are going to pardon me if I'm going to ask two little questions more. One is, some people, some circles, especially in the West, are suspicious of the fact that Turkey might, at one stage, help Russia evade sanctions, because Turkey is not joining the sanctions campaign, because the air space is not open, and I can imagine that the Russians might use this in order to evade sanctions. I'm wondering whether your country has any kind of similar concern. And the very last question is, I'm wondering what you think about the public opinion, because there are so many pro-Russian comments sometimes in the mainstream media, and maybe you have also seen the results of a opinion poll where it said the number of those who said United States and NATO was responsible of the war in Ukraine, the number of those ones were even bigger than the ones who said Russia was responsible. So I'm a little bit curious about your opinion, and if you ever raised this issue of the public opinion with your Turkish interlocutors. Thank you, and thank you for the patience of everybody here.
No problem. It's fair questions, because these figures also, let's say, have been discussed in different platforms and so on. So let's start from the guarantees. So first of all, guarantees need to be, so the countries which could give the guarantees, they should have a potential to implement them. So there is these 5 countries in the Security Council. We invite them, and despite of they want or not, they will be engaged in the process. And the issue is what the scale of guarantees they could take. That's the issue. The sense, not the numbers, but the scale. With understanding that, you know, before the war, there was no a simple say or simple deed from the Western countries, including United States, who said that we will defend Ukraine. And there is no neither formal obligation nor practical presence. So Russia's tried to encircle or to try to circle the fake news that Americans are opening military bases, laboratories, everything that they are present in Ukraine, etc. It was a total fake, except maybe sending us some military equipment and a couple of trainees who have been training our soldiers in the Yavori polygon, where everybody knows where it was, and it was within bilateral military cooperation. It's one simple thing. So with regard, we are also in this dimension, we are also inviting other countries like Turkey, Poland, Germany, who are not among the Security Council members, to be the guarantors and to participate in this, not only in the as signatories, but also participants. So actually, we understand that it is increased the role of these countries, but also they could be practically pressing both by political and other means on Russia and prevent Russia from being more aggressive. Because, you know, it's not only about us. If the sorry, it was a phone. As much as we can, and that is the story for, let's say, preventing wars in future. If these guarantors are all work together, including Russia, and Russia will be in the process, there is less probability that Russia will continue to do something and will not be punished for that. Because still the question is, for example, in Ukraine, who will pay for all this destruction? Will Russia be bring to responsibility, and how? So this treaty on guarantees does not close the case, because for sure, we will appeal to different international institutions like this criminal court and others. Despite Russia is not a part of it, we will push for compensations for all they have done. And we will try to bring them to responsibility fully, including compensation for destructions, including bringing people who were guilty in the criminal acts in Ukraine to the direct responsibility. So it will be the long-lasting case, like it was after the World War II for Nazis. And that is not the, this agreement will not close the case. This will just open the new process, because if the evil will not be punished, it will be repeating once and more and more. And we wouldn't like to repeat the same war once again somewhere in Estonia, Latvia, or Poland. And that's for sure. That is why this guarantee issue is wider than just to guarantee Ukrainian independence and sovereignty. So that's one case. The Turkey's role is very active. So it is not only the facilitation of the process, because as you remember, the meeting in Antalya was trilateral. So Minister Çavuşoğlu was presiding the two sides of the conflict, despite I'm also urging the colleagues and journalists and ambassadors not to use comparison of sides, because we are not equal in this dimension. We are the country who have been invaded, and there is aggressor who is killing us, and we are defending ourselves. So the different approaches, and we are not two sides. We are defenders, and they are aggressors. That's the two destination point. And there wasn't just simple proposals like to organize humanitarian corridors or to organize some kind of humanitarian ceasefire. It was all rejected by Russians because they have been on the, as they think, on the upper hand and try to push their own agenda. The situation changed because first, the military situation changed. Secondly, Minister Chivuşoğlu had been visiting Moscow previously, then he visited Ukraine to talk with my minister. Then it was also these organizational issues with regard to conversation or talks in Istanbul. Before that, there were some talks online and in Belarus. So it's a long process in which Turkey has its place. But I will not send you that it is immediately influenced on all the sides directly, that the only Turkey is influencing and deciding what to do and how to do. So Turkey is facilitating and mediating, and that's the case which helps to bring positions closer. Starting from the delivery of speech of President Erdogan, ending to conversations, separate conversations of two delegations with your ministers, it assists and it also helps to understand much more better the reality and the real things which could be achievable or couldn't be achievable. So with suspicions on sanctions, yes, we are pretty clear on that, and we are pushing Turkish side to join sanctions and to close everything possible. So we understand that not everything is possible immediately. And if to say you more details, you know that there are two planes which are stuck in Ukrainian airport, two Turkish planes. There is 23 Turkish ships which are stuck in Ukrainian ports. There are some Turkish citizens who are in besieged cities. And all these arguments are being used by Russia as a terrorist country against Turkey. And that maybe I'm not doing it publicly or saying it publicly very, very oftenly, but it is true that Russia is behaving itself like taking hostages, all of the things, threatening that if you will not do this and that, we might, let's say, hit it, destroy, or do something wrong for that. Plus, we understand the reality, and we are not idealizing our requests, saying that 100% should be fulfilled. We are trying to convince Turkish partners to be more open to this and that, and what is possible. We understand the situation from 2014. I was here at that time as DCM, and I understand how the sanctions policy was perceived by the Turkish government, and that's why we have the clear understanding what is possible here, what is not. And that is why we continue to send the messages and to talk to our partners, but we are not making it, let's say, the cornerstone of our relationship. And with the public opinion, yes, you didn't say the one thing, that there was one estimations before which showed that some 78 or 82% of Turkish people are against the aggression. That's the story which, let's say, showed the picture. But the other story about this 50% blaming United States and NATO, it shows what is the perception of the West in general is in Turkey. If to compare it with the how much 86 or 92% population is considering NATO West as some kind of in negative dimension, so we have only half of them. Considering in such a way. So it's like how to look at this. Is the glass full empty or full or half empty or half full? So it is understand, but it is also a clear vision for us how society look at that and what should be the, let's say, the perception of outcomes. When the people, I see it in practical terms here in embassy. When the war started, we have been receiving a huge amount of humanitarian assistance and practical support from different social groups. And there was even kids with their pocket money sending us some pictures and this money. And there was also a couple of ladies who just take all their gold and give it to us, please sell it. or I don't know, we have sent already almost the same quantity of humanitarian assistance to the Turkish government. We collected from the ordinary people. That also shows something. And that is the real perception of the war. It is not about the public opinion, because it depends, you know, how sociologists could put the question. In case you have the negative attitude to the West, you could easily say something in this and that way, and it could be the answer. But it's not about the reason; it's about the outcomes. And the majority of Turkish people are saying that they are not supporting this invasion, and that's the clear vision. Plus, what I see, the narratives which have been promoted by Sputnik and some pro-Russian channels or politics, it is not perceived by or not received by the Turkish community. So all these false narratives about Ukraine, about everything they are trying to justify the aggression, had nothing to do with reality and or the public opinion. Now everything from their own sources, from the Turkish journalists who are also endangered in Ukraine, but they are covering everything almost online. And your society have full-scale information about what's going on in Ukraine, starting from the Anadolu Agency ending to the different TV channels. They are presented in Ukraine, and they could easily communicate to your society about the real situation in our country. Sorry, maybe I didn't answer the whole, let's say, scale of the question, but I try to be as much as possible open and clear.
You did. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barça. Ambassador Ersavcı, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ms. Daloğlu. Ambassador, we're looking forward to hosting you next week at TEPAV.
Super, I will come.
And I will be your moderator. But my question is simple. Were you aware that Abramovich was going to be in those meetings?
Yes.
Thank you. And how
yes,
did you perceive it?
I apologize for not being present in TEPAV last week, because I was engaged. This week I was engaged in this negotiation, so sorry for that. But Abramovich was present from the very beginning of conflict, and he was in contact with both, three, I would say, Turkish, Ukrainian, and Russian side. So he was considered as the one who tried to find the way, despite of his yacht and all his money, etc. But at least it was a fair attempt to stop the war. And this attempt was, to some extent, let's say, accepted, because it was maybe at that time the only communicator which exists in reality. So it was not received, I would say the society would not receive it with high appreciation, but as a communicator, he might be good, and he still continue to do this job. I would say not bad, because I'm not contacting with him, I didn't know, but our guys, they are still in contact with him, and it is at least something than nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ambassador Şelenci, please go ahead.
Thank you, Tülin Hanım, and thank you very much, Ambassador Bodnar. You have been sharing your most valuable views and assessments with us, as well as the information from the field. My question will be about the Belarusian attitude. I mean, are they physically or militarily involved? Because we are well aware of their affiliation and support for Russia and the friendship between Mr. Lukashenko and Mr. Putin. So what is the situation? I mean, the first rounds were held in Belarus, but for the time being, what is the situation with Belarus? Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's not a simple question, because if to look at the landscape, they are in the war. From their territories, the Russian forces attacked. From their territories, missiles and aircrafts are, let's say, attacking every day practically. So my perception is that they are legitimate targets for us to strike back. But as I understand, the original plan was to launch the attack on Western Ukraine from Belarus, because you see now that Rivne Oblast and region of Rivne, region of Volyn is not being attacked, and that's because of Belarusian forces does not invade it physically. It doesn't exclude that they are subversive groups, some of the guys who are in Russian forces, etc., they are facilitating, and they're facilitating very much. But finally, the situation in the battlefield convinced Lukashenko not to adopt a decision to intervene. So he traditionally tried to avoid any conflict with Ukraine, but actually this special operation, which was conducted by Russians after the elections in 2020, it brings him to the deadlock. So he has no way out, just to let Russians go in. And so he was afraid mostly about being dismissed from the power. But now the Russians which are stuck in Ukraine, it's in favor of him, because he's not afraid so much as before that these forces will be used against him. It's one of the dimensions. The other dimension is that finally he tried to look for the way out, and he proposed the place for negotiations, the first round, to President Zelensky, despite President wouldn't like to talk to him, but people around him convinced him to talk, and they agreed this place. But we wouldn't like to continue this practice because we have this bad luck of Minsk talks, which actually finished with nothing but only with war. Second thing, it was very hard logistically to bring our negotiators not directly to Belarus, but through Poland. So they could easily fly to Istanbul or to other cities from Polish territory. Then they have been traveling to Belarusian side, which was very close. This negotiation place was very close to the Polish border. And the place was not so good for this negotiation, because everything was under the cover of Russian intelligence, and security of our negotiator was not also guaranteed. That's why we somehow trying to escape from this Belarusian track. And even today there was some talks on VTC between two negotiation groups. But Istanbul is the most appropriate now place, and we believe that it should be continued here. And there was even an expression of will that in case we agree everything, this treaty or other treaties or preliminary treaties could be signed here in Istanbul as well. And we're also working on possible meeting, maybe after the signing of this agreement, between President Zelensky and Putin. That is also one of the essential moments of all settlement process and stopping the war. But as I understand, Putin is afraid of Zelensky. And our proposals, which came from the maybe year 2020, it's enter nowhere, because they wouldn't like to talk. Because they know what the questions will be raised by President Zelensky, and that he will be considered, that they wouldn't have a proper answer for these questions. That might be the reasons why they're also waging a war, I would say, to some extent.
Thank you.
Ambassador, we have two more questions, and I'm just really taking it very quiet as a moderator so that we can take all the questions in. But the last question, I will take it for myself. Okay, can you please go ahead?
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you for sharing your views with us. And let me start by expressing my sympathy in the just war that Ukraine is confronted with. I have two questions. I'm not sure you'll be able to answer the first one, but I still want to ask it. Do you continue to receive military support from Turkey? And if so, in what form, to the extent that you'd be able to share that with us? And if you're not able to answer that question with specifics, what type of support are you receiving from Turkey in addition to the humanitarian and political support that you are viewing? And my second question, again, has to do a little bit with something related. Turkey and Ukraine embarked upon an ambitious cooperation scheme, particularly in the defense industry, and some important signatures had just been put on paper. I know this is not the time to think about these, but do you see any risk of those cooperative schemes, particularly in terms of working together in terms of drone productions and having Turkey benefit from the accumulated knowledge in Ukraine on engine development that was critical for Turkey. Do you see any risk in terms of the future of these agreements that Turkey and Ukraine had signed? Thank you.
In case I'm fair with you, I would say to the first question, yes, but I will not specify what the items, because it's a secret information. It could hurt me and my country. The second question is that, yes, military cooperation, military or defense cooperation is being blocked or stopped now because of the war, but all the prospects and all the agreements are in force. And even despite our engineers and all the workers who have been working for these bilateral projects, they are now somehow engaged in the defense of Ukraine. They are not pushing back the prospects of cooperation. And even I know that they continue to communicate between themselves via VTC, via different other channels. Even more, I would say that some companies came to us and asked for evacuation of engineers and other guys, just not to lose them, not to lose them in this period of time. Thanks God, the majority of them are safe, and we believe that they will continue cooperation. Zaporizhzhia city, despite of being shelled, it is not struck, and then all the companies which have been working with the Turkish side are in full scale working. They are ready also to, I would say maybe it's not a top secret, but they are ready to open their facilities also in Turkey, and this preliminary work have been already conducted. And we are on the good way in that. So I believe that after war, we will have more possibilities, because we signed a number of agreements, you know about that, and we have developed not sell-by schemes, but the cooperation between your industries and our intellectuals on development of very good prospects. And I believe it's one of the driving forces which actually allow us to defend ourselves. And that's also thanks to a number of things which you know, which are singing now in songs. Maybe one joke. It's the most popular name of boys who will be born after the war will be Bayraktar, and girls will be Javelina. You know, the javelin is the system of anti-tank weapons. So it is now the humor which we're trying to spread despite of all the tragedy, but it will be so, and it really make a strong morale and afraidness of the enemy. It really play a huge, considerable role.
Thank you. Ambassador, one of Turkey's former ambassadors to Ukraine, Erdoğan İşcan, is now up.
Wow.
Hello, Witаю Pan Posol. Дуже дякую. I may be the only one here to speak a few words in Ukrainian, I believe. I'm very happy to see you again. I remember we used to meet in Istanbul many times when you were posted there. Ambassador, I hope we are not giving you hard time, but been much appreciating your effort to respond to our questions. Of course, allow me first, Pan Posol. Am I on? Yes.
Yes, you're on.
Allow me first, Ambassador Pan Posol, to align myself fully with the thoughts and sentiments voiced at the outset by my colleague and friend, Ambassador Fatih Ceylan. This is an unjustifiable war, and those responsible need to be held to account internationally. We will see if it will come true. Ambassador, I have two short questions. The first one is regarding the Minsk agreements. We know that the Minsk agreements have the status of the UN Security Council resolution. It was appended to the UN Security Council resolution in February 2015, if I do remember correctly, and they had not been implemented. My question is rather for academic curiosity, and it's rather a hypothetical at this stage, of course. Had they been implemented, Ambassador, could they have prevented or preempted war? What do you think about this? And the second question, Ambassador, about the possible international accountability. As regards the existing mechanisms like the ICC, International Criminal Court, Russia is not party, as you also referred to, and the European Court of Human Rights as well as the International Court of Justice have indicated interim measures, and personally I wouldn't expect the Russian Federation to comply with such interim measures. So far they have shown no interest in proceeding with compliance with such interim measures. So I know there is an initiative, ongoing initiative, to create a special tribunal. And many prominent scholars, as well as politicians, including, I think, one of the lead politicians is the former UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, I have been following very closely. Do you think such an initiative would have a future? I mean, could that initiative to create a special tribunal to hold those responsible to account under international law, could that come true in your opinion? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Danbey. I'm very happy to see you. That's really a pleasure. I recall with pleasure all your work in Ukraine, and when you have been deputy minister and then representative to Council of Europe. So it is really a pleasure to see you, and hopefully I will see you live together.
Your foreign minister, Dimitro, has been my neighbor for 3 years during my 3 years of service in Council of Europe.
I will send him best regards from you, if you wouldn't mind.
Please do that. We have been following each other in the social media. Please do send convey my best regards to him.
I was his deputy for last 2 years, so
yes, I know that. I do know that. Yes.
So, Danbey, you know, this is very. So the second question is very, I would say, academic, because now we should stop the war or finish the war, and then start the procedures with regard to responsibility. For my personal view is that we will not only create this tribunal, but it is necessary for the whole international community. Otherwise, they will continue these efforts, these aggressive efforts, and Russians will continue to be not bring to responsibility, not being if we will not bring them to responsibility, then they will feel themselves victorious. And that's the case which majority of Russian people are supportive for. So even today, we have dozens of interceptions of their phone conversation. I mean, Russian soldiers' conversations with their relatives. And it seems that they are not people, that they are like aliens, because they're discussing, when the soldiers say that I killed 10 civilians, his mother is asking, did you take something from them? Like personal belongings or something. So they're asking, take TV set for me, take something like robbery. So even today, this withdrawing forces in northern Ukraine, they just take with themselves everything possible, starting from the cars, private cars of Ukrainian citizens, ending to the even hostages. So it's all we are all calculating, and we are combining this information. We also make an appeal to the International Court of Justice with regard to the Russian aggression, and there is also one judge who already started to receive these evidences by himself. I couldn't recall his name, but he's doing it by his initiative. He see all these criminals acted. Most probably he was engaged in some process with regard to MH17, but I'm not sure. So for sure, it will be some mechanisms. Will it be a separate tribunal? Will it be in the International Court of Justice or other institutions? But it should be created for sure. With Minsk agreements, so as far as I remember, in judicial terms, so it was not obligatory because it was a political agreement, just as to say blessed by the Security Council resolution stating that these agreements were reached, etc. So it was not like international treaty, but nevertheless, it was the only mechanism of settling conflict in Donbas region between Ukraine and Russia. And according to the ruling of International Court of Justice, let's say this conflict was considered as international conflict or international armed conflict, according to the conventions of 1949, if I'm not wrong. So that's why it means that we are in the war from at least July 2014, and this war is being extended with the military intervention now, with large-scale attacks and destructions that Russia conducted. So with Minsk agreements, for us, formally, it could be considered as the platform for, or let's say political platform for settlement of issue of Donbass. But for Russians, it's not an issue anymore, because first they killed Minsk agreements formally by the recognition of this independence, so-called independence of these republics. Secondly, they are trying to extend the territory of these so-called republics by attacking our territory and trying to take these margins of regions which exist in our administrative division, just like extend territories and kept as much as possible. So that is the case which could prevent us from using Minsk agreements anymore, but we could elaborate on more terms or conditions how to treat it and how to deal with it. Because our president already announced that, and negotiation team, that we propose in this agreement to discuss this issue of Donbass and Crimea separately. It raised some concerns because we proposed some kind of 15-year terms for like a pause not to touch this issue, and we propose it in this draft agreement, which were sent to Russians. But still it is unknown, will they receive it or not? Because if they agree on some terms with regard to these occupied territories, which were on the 23rd of February, I mean, in the lines of 23rd February, it is one thing, and it means that further on we could turn back or just establish a separate track of negotiations. The other story is if they will reject it, saying that it had nothing to do with that they will not discuss it. So we have a free hand to do what we can. So our practical dimension was the peaceful settlement and this Crimean platform, which could be also one of the ways to discuss. With Donbass, it's separate and it's much more harder to understand. But for sure, Minsk agreements are not valid, most probably anymore as the platform for negotiation. So it should be some other ways how to do with that. But it depends. Once again, turning back to the starting point that everything depends on the military conditions which will be in the field, how much successful we will be in the field, smarter Russians will be in the negotiation table. At least I tried to answer it. Thank you.
Ambassador, sir, I'm going to take the privilege of being the moderator and ask you the last question. Thank you, first of all, for all you provided. This is definitely a very critical time for your country. And I see that you're very, you're in good spirits. Your composure is strong. You're holding up well. But how are you really doing? How is your parents doing? Do you have any family members in Ukraine? How are they?
Yes. A lot of friends and family members are in Kiev, in other cities. So my mother is in Western Ukraine. She's more safe because it's a small town in Ternopil region. My wife's father, he's in Kiev, and he stayed for all this period in the center of the city. He actually suffered all these terrible things and lived maybe half of this life in the bomb shelter. But we managed somehow to send him some support, and here's more or less. Some relatives are also in Odessa. Some are at our home here because we take the kids and ladies out of this territory which have been affected or were threatened to be affected by war. And thanks God, everybody is alive, despite my father died just before the war in December, and he did not see it because he was maybe ashamed with all he have been seeing Russians doing with our country. There are many friends who are on the front line. My friend Andriy Sibia, who is the previous ambassador to Turkey, he is now together with President Zelensky in the center of Kiev. also coordinating all the international efforts, because he's diplomatic advisor to the president. So you see that, that all are in their places and trying to do the best for supporting our country.
Ambassador, good luck, and my strongest sympathies to you and to your country. Hope the peace comes really soon, so that this war becomes part of history.
Thank you very much, Tülin Hanım, for your moderation. And to end war quickly, we need more weapons. If this weapon will be supplied, that will end sooner than later. Otherwise, we will be stuck to the let's say, they will be dependent on the battleground. And that's maybe the worst scenario, which we wouldn't like to have. But thank you very much for all your sympathies and for support. And thank you all ambassadors and all the colleagues for participating in today's webinar. Thank you for listening me. Thank you for your patience, and thank you very much for all the questions I have received.
Thank you so much. I have one note that I see here, Muzaffer Erikten. I do not see that he's raising hand here online.
Yes. Now I am raising my hands, yes.
Okay, Muzaffer, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'll take it very short because I was just...
First, I express my deep thanks and appreciation for the very sincere and valuable remarks of His Excellency Ambassador. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
My short remark will be regarding the position of China. In the earlier stage, there was very serious concern, even fear, that China might support Russia. That would be the end of everything, the full catastrophe. Actually, for China, the main priority is the smooth running of the economic mechanism. Any friction and problem whatsoever, how big it is, adversely affects this machinery. If the machinery cannot run smoothly, then there may be internal problems as well. Therefore, China does not want to take part and to get involved in any overseas problem which she is not directly affected and adversely affected. Therefore, that is her point. But also, she doesn't want the other countries to get involved in their own countries, their own problems. They have their own problems. Xinjiang issue, Tibet, even the Hong Kong, and then Taiwan also. But for Taiwan, of course, they show power, but it's for nothing because America has a very serious agreement. Taiwan Relations Act, that they can do nothing without ignoring this act. And also, China has not been a sea power because they have also sea problems with South China Sea and East China Sea. But thanks to the Union ship Varyak that they purchased, now they develop second aircraft carrier. So they start becoming this sea power, sea power as well. But still, they don't want to get involved. And then it is over again. Repeated thanks and best wishes and success in your future work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you so much for this conversation. And thanks to all the participants for attending this Zoom meeting. I think this comes to an end right now.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye. Be safe and healthy. Bye-bye.